Hi, my name is Layla Felder. I'm 17 years old and I'm an avid art lover. Come join me as I talk with artists and curators about their art, their processes, and what makes them tick, because we are in conversation.
Now, Miss McQueen, you asked for this.
Fantastic Wini McQueen at the Museum of Arts and Sciences here in Macon.
This is my 50-year retrospective.
Wow. 50-year retrospective.
Yeah, and it's called The Covering. And what it does, everything here is related to some type of covering of a canvas, of the body, of books, and so forth.
There we go. So Winnie's gonna take me through and, gonna check out some art. So I guess we start here.
Well, this is my first big quilt, and I'll show you the side by just standing in front of it, and it's called Family Tree. 1988, 32 years ago, right? And the yellow sky is the sky of my dreams. It was a nightmare when I first saw what it looked like. It was frightening me, but I'm very comfortable with it now. And these are my family members, and by family it also includes people in the community of about 200 people where I grew up. So Colin Graham is there, and he was a neighborhood photographer. And so some of the photos in this quilt are made by him because everybody went to him for his services. And maybe this is my proudest photo, made with Adam Clayton Powell when I was about 12 years old.
Wow.
I went backstage after he spoke at a local church in Durham, North Carolina, to get his autograph.
Aww.
And that's a photo of my great-grandmother, who was born in around 1846.
So how do you get these photographs, like off of a piece of paper and onto fabric?
Well, there are 2 or 3 different processes going on, and one is simply transferring with chemicals like not almost a little bit like gasoline or gotta think in their own way.
People.
And then some of the photos are actual blueprints and brown prints. My tools, for example, and some of the art in my house, and some, especially the plants that flow through all of it, are done with as shadowgrams using chemicals that give us blueprints and Van Dyke brown prints.
So what is the significance of the plants that go through?
The mimosa is a plant that is found, one of the few plants that's found both in Africa and in America. And so that was my connection there, to use that mimosa here and there and everywhere.
I love that. By the way, your embroidery is incredible. I'm just marveling at this flower.
Sorry I didn't embroider it, Layla. It's an old linen from my house. It's all raggedy all around there, and that little part survived. And I just worked right on top of the discarded linen. And this is my first quilt. I mean, that's part of it. That was made when I was about 7. And growing up in 1940s North Carolina, you don't have a lot to do and play with. And my grandfather worked at a cotton mill as a boiler stoker. Very hard, dirty work. But he would bring swatches of cloth home sometimes. And these are some of the swatches that he brought. And I would not remember having done that, except that my family saved it. So there was enough for me to use fragments in 3 different quilts. And these are done with blueprint, very much the way darkroom photography is done, but I use my 35 millimeter negative strips. And you can see many of them are the children in my family or children at play and so forth.
So why quilts? Of all things, why quilts?
Why quilts? Because there was not enough time for me to learn enough about silk, making kites. My dream was to make kites, paper, silk, and other fabrics. And I got the invitation to do a one-woman show. And so there was just time for me to call on something that I was familiar with, but had not really worked with quilts. So it was a new experience, and this is what came out of it.
Wow. Did you sew the whole thing yourself, Winnie?
I sewed the top, and it was professionally quilted up in North Georgia, and I would still be trying to put it together. I'd be still trying to quilt it if I had to do that part of the work. And I work with it in strips. You can see how it runs 1, 2, 3, and so forth all the way across.
And this took how long to make?
I spent about a year working on the pieces for this exhibit. And they were all, the time was mixed. Wow. You work a while, a few weeks, and then you come up for air and do something that's more fun. Because I actually had to learn these techniques, learn some of the techniques in order to make the quilt.
Wow. So where do you want to go next?
Wait, I have a question. Can you tell us about this laundry we wash for white people only? Where did that come from?
That's a stock photo, and I grabbed it from someplace to throw into this work because it was typical of what we saw when I was growing up. You know, the segregation of society. And so that was one of the typical signs. And my first bit of good trouble was sitting on the front seat of the bus when I was about 4 or 5. And I had just dreamed of riding sideways and looking across and seeing everything as we passed frontwise. And I hopped up on the front seat, and my aunt, who was traveling with me, or who I was traveling with, just went to the back the way you're supposed to do. And I'm like up in the front sitting on the seat saying, "Auntie, come up here and sit down with me." And the bus driver just stopped the bus. And I guess he was wondering, what is he gonna do with the child? My aunt said, "Jessie Winifred." Jessie is my first name.
She must have been mad if she used that word.
Yeah. Well, you know when she uses your whole name, it's time to move.
Yeah.
So that was one of those instances, but it was traumatic for me because I had to suffer the consequences when I got home.
I'm sure.
And the bus driver, everybody just stayed in place until she corrected my error. I mean, she didn't beat me up or anything, but
Yeah. You probably got a talking to because it was dangerous. Like, it was literally what you did was really dangerous.
yeah, right.
It was courageous and dangerous.
Right. Well, there was no courage involved. It was just what I wanted to do. I wanted to sit on the front seat, and I did it before Rosa Parks.
Wow.
Wow.
I mean, that we're talking about 1940, probably 48 or 49.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's unbelievable.
And this is a photo of my mother, Mabel, right here. And she's represented with other people as a falling leaf. Because she died, and by the time I made this quilt, she had died. So
Oh.
the falling leaves of people who.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
And that was a bit of traditional quilt making taken on. That's for those real quilters to do. And we'll go from there here. These are both on loan from the Tubman Museum. And it's called Here, and Then We Heard the Thunder. And it's about John Oliver Killens, noted Macon writer and author, whose hero was Harriet Tubman. And Harriet Tubman was quoted as saying, "And then we saw the lightning, and that was the guns. And then we heard the thunder, and that was the big guns. And then we heard the rain falling, and that was the drops of blood falling. And when we came to get in the harvest, it was dead men that we reaped." So Oliver Killens named his book about World War II, and then we heard the thunder. And these represent Harriet Tubman, the fern, the adinkra fern that says, "I am not afraid." And that's the war horn. And we all know she carried a gun at some point. And here, the retired general.
And this is Harriet right here.
Yes. You see she's holding a big plate of ferns to show she's not afraid.
We have questions, Layla. I like this piece a lot. The quote is so powerful.
Isn't it?
Where did you first hear about that? Because I've never heard about that before.
Well, I just ramble and read. Much more so when I had younger eyes 20, 30 years ago. And that one is called She. Did you all ever see that at the top, man?
I don't feel like we saw this one.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, they commissioned me to do a quilt about the black women of Macon and Middle Georgia. And so I chose to feature women from all walks of life. And much of that was made just out on the street as I walked around and saw people at their daily tasks. And one of the outstanding stories that come out of here is the Ellen Craft story. And that was Ellen Craft is up here, and she's there. Ellen Craft and her husband were enslaved here in Macon, and they made a plan of escape. And she traveled as an invalid white man.
Oh, I've heard of her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. And they caught a train here in Macon where they were enslaved and rode to Savannah. From Savannah, they went to Wilmington, I think by boat or by buggy, I can't remember, and ended up getting to Philadelphia and to New York and to Boston, and ended up having to go to England to spend out the days until the Civil War was over, because slave hunters from Macon came after them. And you can see pictured here is her great-granddaughter, who's called Julia Ellen, in the purple jumpsuit. And I represented her as a kind of a repeat from at least 4 generations.
And all of these newspapers, are these ones that you found online or that you found like
No, I found them online researching the old newspapers at the library. This was a big research job, and nothing to do symbolically, really. It needed to be very graphic and in your face.
Mommy! Come and see this!
Do these I just have any meaning?
The yo-yos. Well, at the time, I selected to do them because they seem so feminine to me. And we had an older relative here in town who was named Monk. Her short name was Monk. Her play name was Monk. And I dyed these circles, turned them over to her, and she edged the circles, and then she drew it to create what we call a yo-yo. And there was that much yo-yo left.
Wow.
because she liked to sew.
Uh-huh.
And so the yo-yos were left and just got turned into a painting for this exhibit. So it's called Yo-Yo Monk, but I'll point Yo-Yo Monk out.
Who's in the center of the piece?
That's my seamstress, Hattie Mae Jones.
It's a beautiful picture. She's gorgeous.
Isn't she beautiful? And a lot of the people were people who I just saw on the street. And they represent the times.
Where's your next?
I want a
It's so much fun. I love this.
Layla, it wasn't fun when I was doing it. Because actually I had to make more yo-yos because the spaces had to be filled in. Yeah, so it's yo-yo winning too.
How long did it take to make this one?
You can't say how long it took to make anything, because when you consider the fact that it was originally started in 1992 for that piece, and then it was left and it got done, but it wasn't adequate, and I had to go back 2 months later and say, oh, these places need, you never know. All I know is that it's taken a lifetime.
Yeah.
That's the short answer. It's called Dreams specifically, and how a lot of people call on their dreams to decide what numbers they're going to play for that day. And it begins here with this dream where I see this man fishing, and it actually happened. He was fishing, and I saw him from a bridge down beneath, and there were fish and there were plants. So I go to my dream book, and there are leaves, there's a black man, there's a man, there's water, and these descriptions come from Aunt Sally's Policy Players Dream Book and the King Tut Dream Book that my mother left me. And you see these lottery cards laid all around the street. And everything that spoke to me of dreams and lottery at the time, I gathered and threw into the lottery series, including the garbage can. You see the scene there out of the garbage can where you got poor people just throwing their money away, and it's in the garbage.
Facts.
Yeah. There wasn't enough time to conceive of and decorate fabrics and clothing. So we came here with three black mannequins, and the museum curator borrowed the others, and she dressed and spread them, set them up like this.
So beautiful.
I was just scrambling around the other day looking for my necklace to put on.
And it was here?
It was yeah, so this is my jewelry too.
Wow. I really love the orange one a lot.
The orange skirt. Marvin did that. And there's a second one. It hasn't been colored.
I like these kimono jackets so much.
Oh, thank you.
I love these.
And all of these are your necklaces?
Uh-huh.
They are gorgeous.
Thank you.
Where do you find them?
That I've had a long time, and it came originally from South Africa. It's probably Zulu. And they I found in Cote d'Ivoire. But they're from Mali. Aren't they from the Tuareg people? Are they from the Tuareg?
Yes.
And Mali had just gotten engulfed in a war, and so there were a lot of people there when I was there the last time, you know, with their precious things, and they were selling those just by the tons. And these jackets are almost worn out. I had to patch some of them, and it's wool.
Are we allowed to touch the art?
No,
Are we allowed to touch
we're
the
not
art?
allowed to touch the art. I just really wanted to touch it. But I figure I'm here with the artist, so it's okay.
Yeah, you touch it.
Okay, cool.
You touch whatever you want to touch. They're coming down next.
Sorry, Layla. You know you can't take me anywhere.
You know,
know.
you know what? It's impossible to go to a fabric show and not touch something. So what I did do was I left a bunch of stuff over there. Now, touch your touch. And this coat is made of strips of dyed fabric. The strips are woven in Africa, and I dyed them. And Fanny Monk pieced them. I just learned to feel cloth, to feel cotton textiles in a different way. And it enabled me to go from that to the work that you see that's layered and painted. And that's the way the background, where the construction, how it begins, is there.
Can you guys come step over here so that we can be, you guys can be talking about it, but I can
Okay.
just see this way? Yeah.
Okay. Layla, you have questions?
I'm taking a little bit in. I don't even know.
It almost looks pointillist.
What I know is that it took forever.
It looks
and
like it took forever.
forever.
So these are just all little pieces of fabric, all embroidered down.
But they're manipulated. They're rolled and they're pleated and chopped and whatever I felt like doing to make a flat surface look like something that I'd never seen before. And like some of the things are little commercial scraps.
I love that it's called doodads.
So cheery, it looks like candy.
It reminds me of a garden. It makes me happy.
Well, I think many of these pieces actually end up in my mind being places. You know, that's a garden, that's a lagoon. I'm developing some things now, and they're like cities, but you're looking at them like you're looking at a map, or like Google Map. Yeah. And I would love to have the time to just sit down and work, but there's all this other administrative stuff to be done.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it's just alive. Like it kind of like.
And it didn't look like that at first. And Marvin was there with me, and he would just come through every 3 or 4 hours, and I was working around the clock, and he would say, "Oh no, that's not filled in, keep going." I see some black. Keep going.
So he was like quality control.
Yeah. That's a nice word for the driver.
Literally the slave driver.
He was a driver.
Keep going,
And he
Winnie, keep
said,
going.
If you can get through this one, you can manage everything that's coming up. Because it was his idea to make big art. Because I actually had done this stuff, but it was like, you
Teeny.
probably have something that's
Yeah, I have a couple
similar.
of your
You have
smaller
something.
ones. Yeah.
But they were like frames, and he saw something that I had created as a handbag. He said, "Oh, you gotta go big."
When you work, do you can you talk while you work, or listen to music, or are you just sort of like in the zone and don't talk to me?
A lot of this was in the zone because my music, my jazz, my stereo is broken.
Oh.
And so that's what I would like to listen to, and without that, I just have to work. But there's no TV. Because if I had a TV or radio, my radio was broken. I mean, you can't move it around. It has to stay there, and it wasn't in that place where I was working. So it was quiet. But I think I could really enjoy this. This kind of intricate stuff if I had music to accompany it.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't expecting the driver to show up any minute to say, I see some uncovered space.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. When I work, I can't talk to people. I have music.
Oh, do you? You
And
can
then-
do music.
Yeah, I can do music, but I feel like I need some kind of a music to help me kind of keep going, or to get my energy up, or to get me in a certain mood or something.
I think a lot of people do art, and it may be that the background may be communal. Maybe people weren't meant to just be alone.
Yeah. This is gorgeous.
Thank you.
So where next?
Okay, now what we're looking at next are books. And they were done with a collaborator. Marvin was one collaborator. Dorothy O. Brown was a second collaborator, and she made the insides of these books, and I did the painted outer. And there are various styles of books here. You see a scroll, you see the pleated or accordion style book. And because of the pandemic, we actually weren't able to get together and work. And so I made covers, and she picked them up off the front porch and took them and worked on them. And she was very inspiring. And so right now I followed up, and I actually have started making new books without Dot. But I don't think I'm going to get very far. She was such a skilled bookmaker.
Oh wow, look at that. You know, my mom used to bind books when she was younger.
Oh, tell me something, Alicia.
Yeah, I used to do handmade books. I still have some.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Where did you, who
taught
inspired you, or was it a course? Or?
Well, what happened was is that I was at school, and I was in high school, and I walked
Who was
into.
your teacher?
Who was my teacher? I don't remember. It was an art
school?
teacher, though. Oh, Columbia Prep in New York City.
Okay.
And so I went into the art room for some reason, and I saw they were doing an art class that I'd never seen. It was bookmaking and hand bookbinding, and also they were making marbled paper. So I walked in, I'm like, what is happening in here? And why didn't I know about this?
And that's marbled paper, right?
This is a kind of marbled paper, yeah. So that's how I started. Like, as soon as I did the marbled paper for the first time, I was completely hooked. And they taught us how to bind hardcover books, and then I just kept doing them for special occasions. And then I also started going to classes at there was a Center for Book Arts in New York City, and so I started taking classes there. And I also did some studio space rental there. So yeah.
Did you ever hear the name Drucker, Joanne Drucker?
I feel like I've heard that name before.
Okay, because she's an authority on artists' books.
Yeah, no, these are really beautiful.
And what inspired these books from me was that my close friend Aqua Sharp, who lived in Warwick, New York, died, and for her memorial, I couldn't go there, but I wanted to send something that I thought represented her and our friendship. And she was such a learner, so expressive. I decided I want to make a book, and it was late, and I had taken one day class, and I thought I knew enough to make a book, just ever how skimpy on the inside, because it was about the cover for her. And I had to call on Dot and Dorothy, and so that was how we ended up partnering for this exhibit.
Gotcha. So, Winnie, can you tell us how you did this technique? Did you?
Okay. Well, I do that the same way I did that. See, that's the basic.
Yeah.
But I use a variety of found fabrics and textiles, and I glue and collage and whatever, and then I paint.
So then what do you paint with? Do you paint with a brush, or do you paint with a roller?
Well,
What do you
I
paint
haven't
with?
used a roller, but I have used a brush and whatever. I go into a trance when I do this, and so I don't know what I use, but I can hear myself, wham, pop. That's what I remember, is a sound of forcing that into where I want it to go, and and that's fun. That's fun. And it's layer after layer after layer. And when I get to the end, sometimes 2 or 3 days later, I realize that was not the end.
Do you do this outside in your yard?
I actually do. I do this in my house. I had rented a studio for the duration of the exhibit preparation, and COVID came in and forced me back home. So things are done in panels. You can see how
yes.
I had to.
You had to go smaller in order to go
and-
big.
Right.
And then,
But it's like it's still like making a quilt.
yeah. So it's not stitched together? Is it not stitched together as a quilt? It's just mounted?
It's done on felt and then glued to canvas.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And then do you mix these colors? Because this is more like a rose gold here. So pretty.
How come the gold? Like, why? I mean, it's
I
a
don't
gorgeous
know. I
color,
just for
but-
some reason I'm on this metallic,
Situation. Yeah.
iridescent. That's what satisfies me now.
Yeah.
Some of them are not exactly like this, but they became books, and Dorothy still has the books. They're more like Google Maps. But that's my next step, my progression from here to there. I may have to turn around and come back.
So you dye all the fabrics that you use underneath.
For the most part, I'm trying to think what is there, because there's some things. Well, I do dye them, but you can see found stuff, and it's pleated, and it's dyed, and it's bleached, and it's where I bring all of my skills as a 50-year veteran of fabric dyeing, painting school. So some things are stamped. They're stamped. I've got some small pieces like that, probably this size, in the
In the gift shop?
that you can
buy.
rough up and really, because they're available to.
The scroll paper is beautiful.
Isn't it?
Wow.
And it's long.
Yeah.
Isn't this the one that she did? That's about that tall.
Yeah,
Yes.
It's about that tall.
over 6 feet.
It's beautiful.
What I'd like to do the next time is some different ribbons, more earthy, natural ribbon. Layla, this is most like the quilt that you have of mine in your room. And it's based on stories that were told by former slaves who were visited and interviewed by the Writers Project of the Works Project Administration. And instead of talking about reading and writing, this group of people were really concentrated on the cotton culture. And children are all, look, we have to catch them. The children are all into the
Interactive.
yes. And so the individual stories are there, and maybe you'd like to record some of them, because I have copied them and hardly edited them just for this. And this represents a bale of
Oh, a bale of cotton. Yeah. Is it the same dimensions as a true bale of cotton?
It's close to a true bale of cotton. And the intention was to have it up a little higher at face level, so the viewer could walk around and read all of the stories
Without crouching all the way down.
yeah. But we ended up, instead of putting a bedspread here, she put the bale here. And they talk about having been torn away from their families. They talk about the actual work, the labor involved in picking cotton, about the punishment involved if they didn't have at least 1 pound more than they had the previous day, because that was the important. It's worse than the literacy stories.
I like how you use the American flag to tie it. Me too. I think that is so wonderful.
And what I have, the photos come from the Georgia State Archives, but I think that because slavery existed in Africa, the Anti-Slavery Colonization Society that has its office in London has photos of enslaved people in Africa. So you see them there and there. And what I thought was an interesting is it a coincidence that they are chained and imprisoned, and they're wearing stripes.
Oh my
Just
gosh.
as in American prison
Yeah.
wear. Have you ever handled cotton?
When we went to South Carolina, we passed some cotton. I think we got out of the car and my dad grabbed like 2 of them or something and took them back home. So I held them, but I've never actually marked them. She was asking have I ever picked cotton before. I never actually picked it or anything.
Yeah. Well, I've been growing cotton.
Really?
I've got cotton growing in my front yard. This year the harvest was skimpy.
So is this all cotton from your yard?
Not all of it. Some of it is stolen cotton. And I kept us out, and
If you just take one look up there, you see them spinning right there. But that's in Ivory Coast. That's how they do it for real. That's for sure.
yeah. And that was a cone. And the cotton that's grown in Africa is very similar. I don't know why those little white dots are in that photo, but things happen.
Why these little stars?
The fabric on top and accenting a lot of it came from a quilt that somebody gave me, who found it on the street in the rain, evidently had fallen off of a truck when somebody was moving. It's very raggedy, but it shows a lot about people holding on to their old quilts.
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually find quilts in abandoned houses around here sometimes.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So these are pieces from a found quilt. And it's also, as far as I can tell, I look at the prints and I see fabrics from around the 1930s when these stories were being told.
Wow.
And there's some natural indigo dyed fabric that I did.
When the mother and her son over there, they realized he was an artist, and then like they were saying it, and they it's like,
So next Sunday they're having a film. They're doing a film.
oh my gosh, this is on my birthday, but in 1855.
Wow.
I was born April 14th, 1855 in Kemper County, Mississippi, close to Meridian. I drove gin wagons in the time of the war.
I didn't know you drove gin wagons, Mom.
Whatever you lacked of having your weight in cotton, you would get a lick for on down till they called us out for the war the way it was.
Yeah.
They were going to give my brother 50 lashes, but they came and took him to the army and they didn't get to whip him. Lewis Brown. I didn't know your name was Lewis. My name is Lewis Brown. Mom's name is Lewis Brown.
Wow.
It's always weird to see things that happen on your birthday.
It is.
King Cotton, man.
Have you all ever heard that story, Alicia and your family, about black people in red?
No.
Okay, I grew up and we were always, what would you say, there was just a lot of sentiment about red for one reason or another. Mama, don't let that girl wear red. Oh, you shouldn't wear red. Oh, I love red. And so that talks about people having been captured in Africa and on board ships and brought here because they were interested in the red. You know, there was not a lot of red cloth in Africa. And so people were captured.
They tricked them by...
They tricked them into getting on the ship, on the boat. And once they were all there, they
locked it.
They locked and brought to America.
Wow.
So
That's the OG come in, I have puppies in my van, come see. But
Literally.
This version was I have red cloth on my ship, come see.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's completely crazy.
yeah. This work is called the Canopy, and the canopy flows over us and it envelops us, and it's composed of cotton fabric. Everything from scrim, which is used in theater, you know, the real sheer fabric there, the cotton velveteen, and various other textures, and it's shaped and sewn and starched and pleated, and it's all done to create an atmosphere of color, of sky, of warmth. And I've asked people, what do they make of this? And because when I stopped, there was more story, but I think each person who visits also makes their story about what they feel and see and what it might be. And I thought the museum staff, the curator was Susan Welch, who was the director as well as the curator of this exhibit. And we basically came out here, Marvin and I came out here with drawings and illustration of what we wanted to happen, what we thought. And we came back a few days later, and she and her staff had installed this. So I was just absolutely delighted with what they did. And at this point, I would like for this piece to grow. I would like for it to fill a much taller space, and I'd like for it to expand and become two or three times.
Inside.
Okay, I will after this.
She needs a camera, I think.
Oh, it's okay. You're still talking.
Yeah. I'm finished.
Okay. Well, one thing, Layla, what do you see in this work? Come in here.
Okay.
Both of you come in there.
Okay.
I feel like
Listen.
it feels, I don't even know how to describe it. It feels joyful, but it feels like I've almost sort of like entered a different plane, kind of.
Can she take her mask off?
Can you take your mask
Yeah,
off, love?
sure.
Yeah.
And we'll step back.
Yeah.
So,
It feels like I've entered a bit of a different plane. It reminds me a bit of like sails, you know, on ships, but going somewhere else, you know, going somewhere better. But this is so immersive, you know. I just want to be in here. It feels so good, like being in this center of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the colors are so beautiful. The colors are so warming and exciting, and
Yeah.
just it feels like the coolest canopy ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Smile. Candy camera.